I got the gist, I think, of, but I'm also keen to hear. You actually bought a hardcover. You're such a good human.
Yeah, I actually listened to the audio twice. And I felt it's one of those books. I was saying to Lani, we spoke about it briefly, and I felt I need to have this book. So, you know, and I'll explain why when I do my opening remarks. I'll explain why I think it's important to have this book. But I listened to the audio twice. And yeah, but I'll explain. Yeah. Tulani?
I think I also listened to the audio a few times because of there's lots of anecdotes, so sometimes you miss the punchline.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tulani, have you read it?
Yes, last night I finished the last chapter. I pushed to finish the last chapter last night, last page. But yeah, it's an interesting book.
Yeah.
Quite a number of nuggets to pick up.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I read. So when we spoke, I was looking for it. So I bought it and
I
started reading then. And last night I just pushed just so I can finish it.
Awesome. Angie, did you manage somehow?
Yes, sir. Somehow, yes. No, definitely. How I'm most of the time read it. I have the audio, I have the electronic copy as well, the soft copy. And I usually read, I'm also subscribed to the different services where I do a lot of briefing, a lot of the nuggets. And so I have a lot of, let me show you. I have a lot of notes for each chapter. I took my notes here. So yeah, I'm quite ready.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting. Yeah, like you don't mess around. Like you even.
No, I just like to go to the point, to be honest. I'm a slow reader, just like Fifi. Like sometimes I take a lot of time. So I just like to go straight to the point, to the meat.
Okay. What happened? We're not going to expose you because I know you're coming for the first time, and thanks for coming through. We greatly appreciate it. And
thank you so much.
hopefully in the next ones, you will be able to. We won't chase you away. We hope that after tonight's session, you will definitely join us for the next one, and then we will expose you.
Okay, but then hopefully I'll be ready.
Yeah, no, you will. Okay, great. Thanks, guys. I know Malisela said he's gonna join at 7. Shama, I think, mentioned that she can't join. Lolo is here, but I think she's got something else also that she's busy with. But she'll also join us through as we go. But thanks. I think we should start. Angie, I think the idea is to finish at 8. Hopefully.
All right.
If we make it, I don't have, my notes are not that comprehensive, but I just want to do sort of like a recap because this is the last book that we are reading for the year. So I wanted to sort of do, I don't know if you guys can see my slides.
Yes.
You can, great. I need to, okay, here we go. So I mean, when we started the book club in 2020, early 2020, I mean, we've been doing some reviews on and off. And then in 2020, we decided let's just sort of do, you know, and just have a few people coming through. So it's been a small group, you know, if you are into books, business books. So we started in 2020. We started with Start With Why. I remember, I mean, COVID, you know, you become so creative with COVID and lockdown. So we started with Start With Why by Simon Sinek. And then we did one of my favorite books, How Will You Measure Life by Clay. And then 0 to 1, quite an amazing book for entrepreneurs. And then if you're a creative person, a writer, a creative person, Elizabeth Gilbert, Big Magic is quite an amazing book. I mean, we know her for her Eat, Pray, and Love, but this is her book after Eat, Pray, and Love, which is how to live a creative life, which was quite fascinating. So we did that in 2020. We then did Disruptors. This is about social entrepreneurs. We in fact had an interview with Karen Greche, the author. She joined us. I know her from TEDx Johannesburg. We were curating her talk with TEDx Johannesburg a couple of years ago. And as part of the curation team, they also gave us the book, Disruptors. And so she came through, we did an interview with her. And then we had, we then reviewed Africa's Business Revolution. Archer Leke, I know Archer, but he couldn't make it. We were hoping to have him. And then What They Don't Teach You at Harvard Business School, such a very controversial book. So we did this once in 2020 for 7. So we did 7 books in 2020. We were just starting up. And this year, I think Tulani, you were there in 2020 and a bit of 2021 before you ran away from me.
Let me say something. Most of the books that you're showing, I was there. However, beginning of this year, I hit a dip, and middle of the year, I remember I wanted to join, but COVID had me down for quite a while.
Oh yes.
So recovery was slow. And the one after that, that's the one I wanted to join in, but trying to catch up from the break. Things didn't work out. But all the ones that you mentioned, I still have the copies. And I enjoyed them, But started roughly, and
No, I'm glad you made it. I'm glad you are back. I'm very happy, and thank you so much. Greatly appreciated. So you missed some of the, and I know Tebogo joined also somewhere along the way this year. Angie also joined also later on as well. So we then started with Disruptors 2. So as a result of Disruptors 1, so as a result of this one on the left, where we spoke to Karen Kreche, they then wrote another book, a sequel, season 2, all right? And they called it Disruptors 2. And here we managed to secure an interview with Gus Silber. He's also one of the authors. And we had like a long discussion with him, quite an amazing guy, artsy-watsy type of a guy. Very, those poetic type of guys, when you write a book or anything and you want some guy to bring some poet into your book. So he came through. So we had a discussion with him, an interview with him. And then the following month, I think in Feb, we then invited Professor Marala to come and do Closing the Gap, the 4th Industrial Revolution in Africa. We also, the guy talks, my word. We had a very good talking with, oh my word, the guy talks. So we actually always ran out of time. Like we always, I think, you go into an interview with this type of authors and you have like 10 questions because there's so many things that to talk about. And you only get to ask about 4 questions because in each question, he just goes on and on and on and on. And it's fascinating. He's a fascinating storyteller as well. I like this type of interviews because the speakers are generous. So they are willing and they're open to share their insights. Even when you're not asking for it, they just give. And this is what they mean when they say, I'm giving an interview, they're giving you the insights. So we only managed to ask him about 4 questions and he just went on and on and on. But it was also quite a good interview discussion on the book. And then I think, you joined in when we were doing great, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. No, actually, funny, I think I was there when Professor Marola was, unless he came twice.
No, he came twice. We couldn't have him, it was just already, already when we were doing this interview, already when we were doing this one, he had already released a 2nd book, right? Obviously he's got other books, but he had already released another book. So already when we finished this interview, we already had set up another interview for the next book. And by the time we did the follow-up interview, he had released another book. So
oh my goodness.
It was like, no, okay, we'll have to give you a break for this year. We'll see you sometime next year because there's another book also that he wrote. So you came in when we were doing Great, but
Yes.
before Great, we did Originals by Adam Grant, How Conformists Move the World. So it's quite an amazing book about how, you know, innovative, creative people are able to come up with ideas and push them until they succeed. He does quite a, I mean, Adam Grant is a professor at, is it the University of Pennsylvania? I can't remember. But his books are quite well researched. So he does all these experiments with his students and goes out there and, you know, he does all these fancy experiments and he comes and says, here are the results, and he's able to put them in a nice book. Not like a, you know, as if you are reading an academic research paper. So we did Originals, and then we did Angela Duckworth. I know, Tebogo, you're not quite chuffed. But I liked the book, even though I felt at some point it was just too long-winded. But I like Angela Duckworth. I follow her podcast also. She's got a very nice podcast also with the guy who wrote Freakonomics. If you know the Freakonomics series of books.
Yeah, I like the Freakonomics series.
Yeah. So there's a podcast that the guy who wrote Freakonomics.
Adam Levin.
Come again?
No, I was double checking who the author of Freakonomics is, because it's written a few things. Levitt or something.
Yes. Yeah, so they run that podcast. So I like her. I think she's quite cool, but I think obviously the idea was I don't know, overcooked or something. But yeah, and then we did, this is the second interview talking about Tebogo, leading in the 21st century with Professor Marwala. I couldn't be in this one because of load shedding. So yeah, but I suppose because I hear there were freebies and all these promises made in my absence, and then I come back.
Oh yeah, he promised me 10 books.
You guys, and then I'm like, okay, when was this done? These promises.
He promised us.
I'm
even suspecting he promised us bottles of wine because he was drinking wine before we started. And then he promised us.
He likes you. He likes the group. He was like, oh wow, you guys are quite cool. So he was promising all these things.
Yeah, so we need to go collect, because he promised me 10 copies of the Chinese book. And then he promised us this book and the next book for free. He said anybody who walks in his office, if we do a walk-in, he'll give us the books. But obviously it's COVID, so he knows we're not going to do that.
It's fine. I'll actually arrange with him for the next book review, and maybe we can get some copies of the new book. So I'll try and push for 10 copies for us before we invite him for the discussion. Maybe we can go through the book and then invite him. And then after we did Crushing It, Gary V. I know Tebogo, Gary V is your man. So you took us through. I quite enjoyed this book. I always thought this guy is a bit eccentric, but I think he's got a very weird sense of humor. But I liked the book. I enjoyed it thoroughly. And of course, then VBS, A Dream Defrauded. This one was just a traumatic book. Oh my word. Yeah, it was a trauma. I mean, the things that the guys were doing, I was like, are you kidding me? Are these things possible? But yeah, and we know that the dream has been defrauded, and we know that it's a current case that's going on. It's quite interesting, as because I know 2-3 weeks ago there was a development. Some of the municipal either manager or CFO, they were appearing in court and whatever. So it's quite interesting once you have read the book. And especially a current affairs book, as the news break, you are able to connect the dots very quickly. So yeah, then we did VBS. And then Malisela came and he said, subscribed by Tinzo. I think it's also quite an important book. I think it's slightly ahead of its time. Of course, it's a tech book to a large extent, but I think it's... Angie, when did you join us? Did you join us or subscribed or Great by choice?
I started following you when you were doing Crushing It, but I had not joined you in the team. And then I think it was, I got to know you, through social media. And then And then I joined the team when it was Great by Choice. Yeah.
Oh, yes. When Shama was reviewing this for us. Quite an amazing book also. Yeah, and then last month we did Atomic Habits. I thoroughly enjoyed this one. By James Clear. I thoroughly enjoyed this. And then of course, tonight we are doing Psychology of Money. There are the books, 11 books that we have reviewed this year. We did 3 author interviews. So it's not so bad. I was hoping we can do 12, but I think the 12th one will review it in Jan. So it's not so bad. 12 books, not so bad. Anyone who favorite book? Let's do that.
Can I actually say you actually did do 12, because with Crushing It, because there were 2 versions of the book, everybody ended up reading 2 books.
Yes.
Yeah, so you actually can sort of say we accidentally did 12.
Yes.
Because I also ended up buying both of them and reading both of them. So
yes, you're right. Yes, you're right. I remember now. Awesome. So which one stood out for you? Which one took you by surprise? Which one was like, oh wow, I didn't expect this to be this good? And yeah, I know some you may not necessarily have been there with the others, but you might have read some of them. But which one would you say? For me, this was my book of the year.
Can I start?
Yes, go for it.
Okay. As you said, VBS was very traumatic, and I think I try to avoid South African political drama, because it's always fanfare. You never know what's going on behind the shadows. But this book took you behind what's going on, and it's like a template of all types of corruption that happens in the country, and how it leaves you depressed because you realize there's nothing you can do. And oddly enough, I had lunch with somebody who at the time worked with one of the ex-MTN guy. Yeah. And we're talking about how people like that constantly get appointed and reappointed. And I think there's another case of a former government senior official who handed himself in, I think last week, Tuesday morning at 8. And that it sort of gave me a bit of hope, but it's a canvas of the South African landscape of corporate and political corruption. So I would have avoided it, but because of the group, I read it, and now it gave me a sense of what's going on. It's sort of like we do copy paste over and over again, without it. So I was glad that I read it. And Tienzo, it felt heavy, it felt big, it felt like, as I say, it's tech and it's ahead of the time. But I just realized that subconsciously, after you read these things, you apply them in your business. Because I mean, you're in my other group with me with the honey business, and my best clients are the ones that actually have a recurring order, and that's what I encourage. That when people buy, they actually have a standing order and a monthly supply of honey, and you add and you add and you add, and you start looking at value and education. And I think that actually hit home. And it as a lot of the books we read are like very American. That's why I didn't like the grit. But this one was like, this is your reality wherever you are in the world. This model is the future and it's your reality. So it also, I think in the end, I was like, as much as it seemed big, I could actually adapt it.
Okay, let me put up this. Sorry. I'm a bit narcissist when it comes to spelling errors, so I was just fixing some spellings. Go for it.
Let me see what I like. Also, I think Great by Choice, Atomic Habits, and Grit, they sort of, you could group them together, and there was a lot of repetition of what the one book. At some point, I was like, I started applying the things that I read, and I wasn't sure which book I read it from. So it now I cluster them together. When I think about, okay, what do I do next? What do I want to apply? Because I think somebody spoke about the 20 mile, and then it was like the 1 minute and the 1 degree. So the 3 of them, I would say, they're not great individually, they're great together. So yeah, I didn't like Angela that much. I think they all get monotonous after a while, and you realize, oh my God, I could write a book if I really sit down and think about it. There's nothing new that they actually introduced, but it was nice to sort of look at all of them together and apply them in real life and and business. So I would, I think that's, I think
okay.
that's
So
my feedback. There's nothing that I hated. I mean, I like that I'm reading things outside my my academic work, because I have to read a lot from my life's work. So it's nice and refreshing to read outside that. So I'm glad that you get us to read this, to read things that I would ordinarily not read.
Okay, great, awesome. So your number one is VBS, or it took you by surprise?
As depressing, as traumatic as it was, I think. Because I mean, that's why I say the other three books, you've read that before, you've seen it before, you know about all these life hacks, but this one is just like, oh my God, it's like I had to pause at some point and go like recover for a day and think about how much effort. Like it was new, it was fresh, I think, and also because I was not following the whole story before, so it was really, really new for me, and I enjoyed reading it.
Yeah, I remember Melissa, I was also frustrated like you. I was like, what? So much money? What? No, it is a frustrating book, but yeah, I agree. It's a frustrating book. Thanks, Mr. Kunene. I know you haven't been part for most of the books, but anyone that you may have maybe by chance read it outside the group?
Or outside the ones that are listed here?
Or the ones that I listed here, but if not, I mean, you are not part of most of our discussion.
Yes.
What?
So there is 2 books that I've read, but those are self-help book of which they helped me through the low dip that I was in. But I did listen to Atomic Habits a bit. That's the one I wanted to join, but I couldn't. This one that we're going to talk about today is interesting as well. There were certain things that one can take and apply and see how they can help. But it has given me a greater look at how entrepreneurs work, how we work, what challenges we come across, and let me save that for when my time comes.
Okay.
But I read Eckhart Tolle's books, the 2 of them.
Oh, New Earth. Is it New Earth or?
Yeah, and the Now.
Power of Now. Yes, Power of Now. Yes.
And I read John Kehoe's Mind Power.
Yes.
Of which both helped me through the journey that the situations that I was in. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Sorry. Okay. Angie, thanks, Mr. Kunene. We'll come to today's book now. Just want to wrap up the year with the ones that we have read so far. Angie?
Yes, sir. So the one that I joined, or the one that I saw you guys first reviewing, was Crushing It. So I got to read it afterwards. And for me, I really like it because it's more related to what I do, is social media and digital marketing, so the digital sphere. So I kind of enjoy that. And actually, right after reading Crushing It, I started following closely this guy, Gary V. So it really opened up my eyes to a lot of things. I don't agree with the kind of guy that he is. He's very outspoken and then swears a lot and stuff, but I kind of like, I just try to focus on the message, and I think he has good points. And then so then Great by Choice and Atomic Habits, I really agree with Fifi. It's kind of the same thing, but I believe that both of the books came right on time, particularly in my personal life, because I'm the kind of person that tends to take a lot on the plate, and I want to eat the world, and I'm a dreamer and stuff. But these books kind of help me to get grounded. They help me ground, and then to put actionable steps and take it one step at a time, right? So I really enjoyed both of them. And the book for today, I think it's been between this one and Crushing It. I think they are my favorites of the year, because I had never seen particularly money in that aspect, and I found it quite interesting. And I'm looking forward to the conversation. Yes.
Oh, nice. Okay. I think Gary Vee is a character, so he's quite an interesting character. Yes. But I also am looking forward to today. Sorry, go on.
To say the least, you say he's an interesting character. Yes, to say the least.
Thanks to Tebogo. Anyone else that I'm skipping? I hope I'm not skipping anyone who has been here. Okay. Or I'm not so sure if Lolo is here, but I don't think she is. I'm not so sure. Okay, but let's go on, wrap up this, and then let's get into psychology of money. So next year we have Jabu Stone lined up. So I have his book. It's quite a very thin book. It's quite a very thin book. Very thin, right? So we're gonna actually have to do 2 books. We can't just do, I mean, this is like 80 pages or something. So you can finish this within a week or 2. So I'm going to, on the emails, I'm going to send out another book, a thin one. We're going to also do, and I know Tebogo, you have been making noise about Seth Godin's Tribes. So we're gonna do these 2. They are thin, right? But I think we can do this too. Easily available, exclusive books. Seth, his books are, this one is readily available at exclusive books. This one also is at exclusive books, but I'll just have to confirm with Prajabu. He's joining us also for the interview, so he's agreed to come through. So I'm looking forward to that. 20th of Jan. So it's the 2nd week. I mean, you know, the holidays, the 3rd week actually. So we'll be back in action. So Prajabu is coming through for that. Quite an interesting story, fascinating story. And then we also have Dr. McLean Sibanda, Nuts and Bolts, one of the guys who was also with us, recommended Nuts and Bolts. And she also said she will actually talk to Dr. Sibanda to come through and for an interview. So that's great. So we have 2 interviews, Jan and Feb, and then March we have Chris Ategeka from the US. I spoke to him. I remember we spoke about this, and then there was an issue of fairly a new book, and it was not really readily available. So the reason why we're doing it in March is because it will be available in most of this exclusive, most of the bookstores. And I know, Tebogo, you can access it electronically anytime. But I thought for other members also, if we can try and see, we can get the
for your brother, I'll buy.
You'll buy, thank you. So Chris is Ugandan. He was adopted while he was young as an orphan, and he grew up in the US. Very funny sense of humor, nice guy. So I met him at a TED conference in Arusha a couple of years ago. He actually gave an impromptu talk. You know, at a conference, they say 6 minutes, you know, come and give a talk. And he went on stage, he gave an impromptu talk, unprepared, and he actually gave an amazing talk. So he's got a very funny sense of humor. So he's coming in March. And then I'm grappling with Victor Khomuswana also. I'm currently reading Merchants, Native Merchants, quite an amazing book by Pakamisa Zamela, and then there's Info. But these ones are not confirmed. They are just in the background. They're not really confirmed. If Victor Khomuswana is available, then we can do his book. And then Professor Marwala's book also later on next year, we can invite him. Please, colleagues, please recommend books, right? The criteria is if it's easily available or accessible. And the genre, it's mostly business, innovation, leadership. I'm sort of trying to also look at topic-specific climate change, sustainability, pandemics, and those type of things. And then strategy, country development would be, and this is you, how Asia, you know, how China rose, or when China rules the world type of books. And then of course, business biographies. And if the author is available for an interview, that would be awesome, right? NG also in Botswana, if there's an author, you think, you know, there's some, you know, leadership or strategy or business or whatever lessons, please feel free to throw their names in the hat. And let's see if we can have them on the platform. Great. And then of course there's a YouTube channel. Some of the previous book clubs, guys, when you are here, please smile, because you are being recorded and we are uploading this talks on YouTube as well. So if you want to go see the previous, please like, subscribe, not like, oh my word, I'm exposing myself. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, and then there are previous book reviews as well. Thank you so much. Let's get into the psychology of money. Any comments, questions, complaints before we get into that? Angie, are you good?
All good, sir. Very happy and excited. I really enjoy this community, like-minded people.
Awesome. Deborah?
I'm happy. And no complaints, just gratitude.
Gratitude.
And one comment, you should have told us earlier to come looking good all the time. And when I saw that Facebook, I was like, oh my God. I've looked horrible the whole year. Now he tells us.
No, man, you don't need to put up makeup. You're fine. As long as you've got your glasses. Yeah, we'll think that this is, an important, anything with glasses on, it's like an important thing. We forgive everything else, bad hair, whatever, as long as you've got the glasses. But yeah.
The nerdy look. Yeah.
Great.
Overall happy.
Yeah. Mr. Kunene, are you good?
I'm good, no complaints.
Awesome. Mr. Mulepo, welcome.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rush.
Evening,
everyone.
Evening. Okay, so let's talk about the book. Let's dive into the book. We have until 8 o'clock. So I'm going to keep my notes quick, sharp, and of course you'll get a chance to share your views. I loved this book. I loved the book. I love Morgan Housel. He's a blogger. He's a finance blogger. I've been following his blog for a while, and when the book came out, there was just no way that I could not get the book. I'm one of those. I went to Exclusive Book and I ordered the book, and they didn't have it in the country, and I placed an order. I was like, I want the book. Please place an order. So, Mr. Gunena, the book you're having is because of me. I'm joking, but it's an amazing book. And what he does, and I think for me, he starts the story with this guy. I didn't even know this guy called Ronald Reed. This guy was a janitor. He was a cleaner, right? And, poor background, worked as a petrol attendant for 25 years, worked as a petrol attendant for 25 years, as a petrol attendant and as a janitor for 17 years. He passed on in 2014, 92 years. And when he passed on, he had just over 8 million in terms of wealth, in terms of the value of his shares, 8 million. He donated 1.2 million to a local library. He donated 4.8 million to a local hospital where he was hospitalized prior to his death. And then he left about 2 million to his kids as inheritance. So I'm thinking this guy was a petrol attendant and a janitor, and he managed to, build a wealth of about 8 million, right? And he lived a very simple life. His neighbors, friends, were actually quite shocked. They didn't believe that this guy, he had so much wealth within him. I mean, he was a simple man wearing those clothes that you have to always sew them on. So when he died, he had about 8 million in terms of his inheritance. And then there's a comparison that is made, between this guy, Ronald Reed, and there's another guy called Eric Williams. Eric Williams is an NBA player. And at the same time that 2014, the time that Ronald Reed died, and he left 8 million for his kids. Eric Williams, an NBA player, was earning 40 million, right, while he was playing for professional basketball. And in the same year, he ended up being homeless. And so you have this guy who was, nobody, so to speak. He didn't have education. He didn't have qualifications. He was just, a cleaner, a petrol attendant. And you had another person who was a professional basketball player, or you can compare, he was highly educated, PhD, and no offense, Melififi, right? PhD, and all these things. And they end up not necessarily having the financial success that somebody who does not have a degree has. And so this is the thesis that Morgan Housel makes. And he says, and I mean, there are a couple of ideas, but he says that it's not about what you know, it's not about the degree, it's not about, all these qualifications that you have. That's more important. It's about your behavior with money, right? And he says your behavior with money is far more important. And I think for me, this was like, what? Right? It's like your behavior with money is far more important than how intelligent you are, right? So I'm like, okay, wait, now, maybe we need to talk about this slightly, And for me, that was like, okay, so it's not about intelligence, but it's about behavior. And basically that's the thesis of the book. It's about the psychology, it's about the behavior. Even if you don't have a degree or you don't work in a JP Morgan Chase or whatever, right? What's important is your behavior with money. And so I'm gonna share 5 ideas that I took from the book, and then I'm opening it up quickly. Idea number 1, and I think that's what he's driving at, behavior outperforms intelligence, right? So, I mean, there's so many lessons from this, so many lessons, but I'm just gonna do 5, and for the sake of time, I'm handing over. So he says behavior outperforms intelligence, right? And that's the first thing. He says how you behave around money is far more intelligent than what you know. And I think for me, then I came up with this formula. So he says educated person plus poor financial behavior, right, equals financial disaster. Educated, right, high professional, PhD, right? I'm gonna use PhD because I have it, so I can throw it there. Right? And poor financial behavior, right, is equals to financial disaster. But ordinary person with limited education plus good financial behavior equals wealth creation. And I think for me, that was, the first idea that I picked up, but that it's not about which school you went to. And I think the reason why this is important to me is because I get to see a lot of startup entrepreneurs, young people who just left college or university and are starting to work. My nephews, my nieces who, I've helped them at university, at Technicon, and they finish university Technicon, they start to work. And they make the same mistake over and over and over and over again. They get into debt while they're still young, towards account, car account, all these accounts. And 3-4 years down the line, their salary just bounces once into their account and goes and pays for their debts. And they swim in such high debts that they end up being blacklisted. It's just a disaster. And it's because no one taught them behavior. They teach you, and I mean, as an accountant, they teach you budgeting, the tools, they teach you all the tools. But what Morgan Housel is saying is it's far more than the tools, it's the psychology, right? It's not this, it's here, it's the emotion. So I think that's, for me, that's idea number 1, that money is an emotion. And if you can't control your emotions, you can't control money, right? So for me, that was like, one of the biggest lessons that came up. Lesson number 2, wealth is invisible. I loved this. I'm like, yay, right? Wealth is invisible. And he breaks it so nicely. And he says, we think as human beings that wealthy people are people who are driving expensive cars, having big houses. And he says, no, that's not wealth, right? That's rich. There's a difference between wealth and being rich, right? So wealth is invisible. You can't see wealth, right? It's invisible. When a person buys, and he uses this example, when a person buys a 2 million car, right? What we know for a fact is that that person is down by 2 million or he's in debt by 2 million, right? So one of those two. So that's not wealth. And he says wealth is the house you never purchased, is the car you never bought, is the vacation not taken. Wealth is financial assets not converted into the stuff you see, right? And for me, I loved that, and rich, he makes that distinction between rich people and wealthy people. So for me, that was quite an amazing thing. And idea number 3, which is a question that I've been asking quite a lot of entrepreneurs: when is enough enough, right? When are you going to say this is enough? And he gives this as an example to say, you're earning, for instance, you're earning 500,000, 500,000, and you feel in relation to your family members, that's enough. And you fly to Dubai, you get to Dubai, you see somebody who earns 5 million, right? And it's like, what? Okay, my 500,000 is, I need to work hard. And you work hard, you work hard, you work hard, you want to get to 5 million. You get to 5 million and you realize that somebody who makes 5 million in 1 month, you make 5 million in 12 months, he makes that 5 million in 1 month. You realize, okay, this is not, what I have is not enough. I have to work hard and hard and hard. And I found that to be quite interesting, because I think this is a challenge with a lot of people when it comes to money. When is enough enough? Do we draw a line to say, I think here, for me, that's enough? Or do we keep on pushing? It's this whole thing of, where is the end of the rainbow? Do you just keep on pushing, or do you get to a point where you say to yourself, I think I'm okay, I think this is enough, I'll maintain this? And I think he introduces the whole concept of financial independence, basically, not financial independence, to say the goal is to be independent, is to manage your own time, is to do what you want with your own time. That's the goal, right? It's not to have billions and all those things and just spending them. That's, and I'll talk about the codes. And I think for me, that came out very strong to say, at the ultimate end, we do all these things that we do because we want to be able to manage our own time. I want to be able to do whatever I want to do with my own time. And I always say to entrepreneurs, I want to get into a car, and it's like on a Monday morning, I feel like I'm not working. I'm getting into a car, I'm driving to Sun City. I'll see you guys tomorrow, right? And that's what time gives you. And he says there's actually a correlation between happy people and time management. And he says, the people who are able to manage their own time are actually the happiest people. And I remember having this debate with someone to say, you can earn 3 million as a salary, but if your time is not yours, you will not be happy, right? It's not about how much money you earn, it's about, do you have control of your time? And I found that he brought that quite amazing. And then lastly, and then I'll open it up, stop shifting the goalposts. So, and I think I loved this, because he's saying, the dangerous thing about money is your ambitions. He says your ambitions grow faster than your satisfaction levels. So in other words, before you even getting satisfied with a new car, you're already looking for another car. He says that is very dangerous, because you then have this shifting goalposts all the time. And he says it's dangerous when the taste of having more money, more power, more prestige increases ambition faster than satisfaction. So basically what he's saying is you need to be satisfied with what you have, because once you're satisfied with what you have, then you won't have the pressure to go out there and ask for more and more and more. And I suspect this goes hand in hand with when is enough, And he says 1 step forward pushes the goalpost 2 steps ahead, and the vicious cycle starts again. So you buy something new, you feel, that novelty, you buy something new, you feel excited. After 2 weeks, novelty wears off, and then you're back to square one. You want something else now that's new. And he talks about that cycle, right? You buy a new car, you enjoy it for a year. After a year, you see another better car, the novelty for the car that you were liking for a while. and then you want the new one, right? You always feel like you're falling behind in spite of achieving so much. So I think for me, those are the four ideas, and there's more, but those are the four ideas that I picked up. Behavior outperforms intelligence. It's not about how smart you are, especially around money. It's about your behavior. And wealth is invisible. And then when is enough? And stop shifting the goalposts. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Anyone else who wants to jump in? Angie, let's start with you.
Yeah.
And then Tulani. And then I know, Mali, you have got some excuse about not reading. We'll forgive you for tonight. But yeah, whatever little that you have read, please bring it through. And Funeni, welcome as well. So Angie, let's go.
Yes, sir. So yeah, definitely. It's, for me, the starting sentence was, that it doesn't, the management of money, or how well you do with money, it says it has to do very little with how smart. It was something that really I started analyzing. Unfortunately, I have 3 cases in my family that I have noticed it's a fact. My own grandmother, single mom, and always worked as a secretary, and I think she got only the secondary, maybe Form 3. So, and she managed to build her own house and never lacked anything. She sent her kids to university and stuff. And one of the things that I always admire that woman, the discipline with money. She was always saving, which is one of the principles that also in this book touches, the saving part of it, and being content with what you have. So this woman that is just a secretary, and she was for all of her life, nothing executive, nothing big. She managed to have a very big house of her own that she built with her own hands. So that thing really impacted me. And now that I see this book, I mean, I can totally attest to that. And another example is my housekeeper. She always says, I don't have money. And there has been times that she says, I want to buy this plot. And she already has the money, and she has given me sometimes access to her own bank or card and everything. And I see the savings. And as you said, as the case of Mr. Reeves, a janitor all the time and stuff, and not the most educated people or whatever. But I have always seen that determination and that attitude, for example, that she has to say, I don't have money. Well, the bank account is just big, And so I have seen this kind of attitudes that it totally makes sense and totally gets, confirms this theory. Another one is basically my husband breaking from generational poverty. Not to say that we are rich right now, but my husband is one of the people that really manages the money very well, the budget and the savings. He makes a lot of emphasis on savings. So I have seen this definitely works, but it has to do with the contentment and the self-discipline, that you don't need more, because it's very interesting, as you were saying, like the more you demand, the more you want, the less happiness, there's a limit. I think they were saying something in America, it's about the 75,000 per month. I mean, if you earn more than that, they were giving figures. Yes. It's just beyond that. It doesn't necessarily tickles you that way, the same way, because you have reached that limit. Yes. So my principles would be, first of all, for what I took, when to determine it's enough and stop being greedy, because as you were saying as well, these billionaires that go ahead and they want to do more money. They were mentioning some of the examples that they have gotten even into a lot of problems because they're just trying to amass more and more and more. It's never enough, and it's never going to be enough, right? So you need to put a stop and say what is enough. And then the compounding effect also, it's about patience, and once again, it's controlling yourself and knowing how to wait. This man that was the Warren Buffett, the investor, the biggest investor, that is well known as the best investor in the world, of all times. But they're saying all of his shares, or he became so rich, but it was only until he was 65 years old, like the biggest amount of his fortune. It was only until he was 65, 80 or something, because he started when he was only 10 years old, you know. So it doesn't, it is this amassing of money, it's not overnight. It takes patience and it takes a lot of hard work. So it's once again about your behavior, you know. It's about how you see the journey towards getting. And then another thing is very interesting about getting wealthy is different than staying wealthy. That's two different things, because yeah, you can all of a sudden you earn, and it has happened a lot of times. We see it, people winning the lottery, and all of a sudden overnight they are millionaires, 5 million. But what do they do? In 1 week, they're gone, you know? So it's a big difference in retaining the wealth and getting wealthy. And yeah, I agree with you. I really, when you were saying that you were shouting about the true wealth is actually invisible. Yes, I really love that. It's not about wearing and flashing about, because yes, as you say, they were saying, you see a car and you think that you're going to earn the admiration of people and the respect of people, but actually you don't. People would be admiring the Porsche or the Ferrari or the Lamborghini, but not really you, right? As a person, they're just admiring the physical thing. So it goes beyond the material things. So those are the things that I really take. And for me, well, what I really want to practice, I have a very bad saving habit. So now I actually feel like I really need to start getting more serious on savings. My husband does the finances, but personally, I'm not that good in my own finances. So yeah, savings and the patience and the being content, and enough is enough. So I'm taking that with me. Thank you.
Thank you. I always ask myself, how many pairs of shoes do you need to be happy? Like, or bags, or like, okay, 50, 100, how many? Like, I don't understand this. So, and I think that's the psychology, isn't it? That you always want more, you know. And now the wardrobe can't take it. You just open and things just fall. But anyway, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Angie, for that. I love the car analogy, that when people drive expensive cars, people don't look at you, they look at the car, they admire the car, not you. And I never used to think about it that way. But yeah, it makes quite a lot of sense. Thanks for that. Tebogo, I'm not going to ask you how many pairs of shoes you have, but yeah, go for it. And meet yourself, ne?
I think I've got so many pairs of shoes. I probably have like 300 pairs of shoes. And I treat my shoes so well. I treat my shoes like they're a piece of art, you know. But I think, I mean, I lived in China. We went shopping.
Okay, I think, is it me, guys, or is Tebogo?
I think it's her side.
Oh, okay. All right. She'll hopefully come back. I think it's a network issue. Who else? Mr. Kunene?
So there's a number of things that I've learned here, and some of them applies to our daily living as entrepreneurs. What I like mostly, number one, is that wealth is time. So if you have time, then you have wealth. There's a statement that he talks about there where he says, wealth is having time to spend with whom you want to spend with, and for as long as you want. So you own your time. So that is wealth. But going back to the first story that he talks about, the wealthy guy who's a janitor who died, compared to the basketball player, that has confused me a bit, because why have so much money and still not be able to spend it, compared to the guy who went bankrupt, but he has lived his life, he has spent the money that he's made. So being caught in those two situations, that you work hard for 17 years being a janitor and you're not able to spend that money or do what you want, it is a good thing, but not a good thing as well. You need to be able to enjoy your wealth. what's the point of having wealth and you can't enjoy it? Ending up donating to libraries and hospitals, and your kids not even getting as much as as what they deserve. That was a huge question for me. The other story that touched me is Chris Rock, and also that is attached to luck and risk. As entrepreneurs, we look at luck, we risk, and when you look at Chris Rock now, from the Chris Rock who started at the pubs doing comedy there, making all the mistakes, and the Chris Rock that you see now. So some people think that Chris Rock just became Chris Rock, not realizing that in business you have to start somewhere, do all the mistakes, and luck is also on your side. He also talks a lot about investing. Investment is what has, I think the majority of this book is about investment. He talks about other people who invested but never made it. World War I, when the stock crashed, and he talks about Japan, how they crashed, but at the end of the day, he also talks about optimism and pessimism. If Japan at that particular time, at the end of World War II, when they were hit by famine, or however we may put it, yes, and when if one of them could have said that 20 or whatever years to follow, they will be the leader, you wouldn't have believed that. So when we look at the negative stuff that the media portrays compared to the positive things that are out there, media doesn't portray that. They will always look at the negative stuff. But on the other side, when it comes to luck and failure, they only report what you have done as a success. All the failures, probably one has failed 15 times and made it one time. That's what it will be reported on, as if that's the best thing that has happened, not realizing that people go through a lot. There's luck. Some people are good, but they are not lucky and they don't succeed. We also talk about savings. Savings is important. Sometimes we save for buying a car or fixing your house or doing something, but it talks about saving for the inevitable things that are not known, things that you may never know. When we plan, we need to plan for the plan not going right. So that was very important to me, because we plan and we plan and we plan, but we don't know what else may not go right. We plan based on what we know. Even engineers, they will plan for a building with earthquakes and that, but certain thing came, 9/11 came, the planes were driven into the building. That was not planned for. That was something different. So all of those things that when we plan, we need to plan for our plan going wrong. So those are the things that has opened up my mind as to, oh, there's a lot that one can learn from these books. There is more, but looking at pessimism and optimism, saving for the unknown, and the luck is also important, but we keep on trying and knowing that at the end of the day, we'll make it. And yeah. I will stop there.
Awesome. Thanks, Mr. Kunene. Quite interesting. I mean, the whole probability, the luck and risk thing, and the Chris Rock example was quite interesting, because I mean, also if you read on Seinfeld, he also did the same thing. He practiced his comedy in some remote nightclubs and perfected the material. When he went to the big shows, he's got the material that's working. So that was quite interesting. So before Tebogo, you come in, I mean, just to go back to your question, Mr. Kunene, what's the whole point of saving, and you die and the money is in the account and you leave it for everyone else to enjoy and you didn't enjoy it. I think what he was actually trying to sort of demonstrate with the two examples was that you can actually build wealth even if you are the unlikeliest candidate. But also, I mean, to take it a step further, to say it's not that you don't buy an expensive car, or you don't buy, an expensive house, or you don't do all those things. I think the difference is, when do you do it? Remember, it's a time thing. It's a compound interest thing. So when do you do it? Do you do it now with the money that you have, or do you save and build wealth? And once you have built wealth, and it's at a point where you can now buy these things and not necessarily feel the pinch from the wealth that you have. And I think that's where the distinction is. It's a whole lot of, this principle of delayed gratification type of a thing. I mean, I don't know, you know, the marshmallow exercise where they put kids, young kids in front of marshmallows and this. And I know there's been some, rebutting of that theory, but I think the message is build wealth first, and then, in other words, build a solid foundation, and then all the expensive cars and all those things will come. And I think often we then confuse wealth and rich. We take money that we are earning and we buy these expensive things, and we don't build wealth. And we think being rich is being wealthy, and the two are not the same, right? So we need to be able to say, I'm building wealth, which might take me some time. And then once I've built enough, then I'll buy an expensive car, I'll buy an expensive house. I think Jay-Z, I don't know whether it was Jay-Z, recently spoke about the fact that if you can't buy it twice, you don't afford it, right? Like I found it to be quite easy. Like, what? Okay, if you want a Lamborghini and you can't buy two Lamborghinis, so you can only afford to buy one, you don't afford it, because if something happens to that Lamborghini, you'll be so far back that you won't recover. So and I think that's the message, that have enough wealth so that you can buy all these other things and not feel the pinch. If those things don't work out, whatever, you are not bankrupt, like what this other NBA sports person who ended up being homeless. So yeah, I was just responding. It's a common question that we get all the time, especially amongst our people. Like, you only live once, sure, but you live every day for a very long time. So you don't live one day. So that once, it's so many days, right? So you need to think for so many days. So it's not like you live one day. Once is not one day.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's interesting, because after that story, he also talks about the guy who invested a lot and ended up going to jail because he was greedy. He didn't know when to have enough. He ended up in jail when he was rich, but he wanted more, ending up doing the wrong thing, sending him to jail. So all of those, me from where I'm standing, delayed gratitude, yes, but spend that money when you have it. I mean, you have 8 million and you're still staying in a small house. You don't go and live a good life with your people, with your children. You spend time with your children, spending that money. Now you're sick, you can't spend that money, you end up giving it to the hospital.
But isn't it the goal to be, defining happiness? I mean, happiness is being independent and doing whatever you want to do with your time. But maybe let's come back to that. Tebogo, let's give you a chance and give others a chance as well, and we'll come and ventilate those issues, Mr. Kunene.
Okay. I think when I was reading this, I actually thought all the traders should actually see.
Oh, Mr. Mfuneni, yes.
Yes, Doug, I'm driving, and I just I'm about to get to my destination, but I just wanted to say a few things before I go out of the call.
Okay.
And I do apologize, Tebogo, for interjecting.
No problem.
While you were talking.
It's not going anywhere.
So Doug, I read the book and I started to have a lot of things in my head. And the last part that Thulani mentioned, I wanted to talk about it because I was thinking about Guptas. As I think Tebogo mentioned Guptas. We also, I also started to think about the greediness that, you know, a lot of people, or a lot of South Africans at the moment, you know, find themselves into, because of, you know, they will never, or they don't want to get satisfied with what they have. And yeah, it does raise a lot of questions in terms of do we understand what we do sometimes with money? And for me, I said no, because this is the reason at the end of the day we will end up, you know, just doing things that are not necessary, just because of greed. The example that, I mean, he mentioned about the gentleman who ended up, you know, doing wrong things because firstly he had an opportunity, and secondly, I mean, he just wanted, you know, too much wealth. Now, you know, I spoke to my son. My son is 19. Then he asked me a question, and I couldn't answer. The question was about, you know, Patrice Motsepe, to say why Patrice Motsepe still acquire a lot of wealth, whereas he has enough. So I couldn't answer that one, Doc, because I'm trying to think, okay, what would be the reason? I know that he's busy, you know, giving out money and all those things, you know, trying to help people. And I think he mentioned it in the book where, you know, social responsibilities as well as one of the things that, you know, people can do. Maybe, I don't know if I'll have time, you know, to listen to you, you know, to answer that question. But going back, I sent you a clip. I mean, I think it's like a 30-minute video about Mike Tyson. After finishing the book, I watched the entire video about Mike Tyson, and then I thought, gosh, this is what we go through as people. And one statement that, you know, resonated well with me is when he says, you know, people complain that they want a lot of money, but they don't realize what money can do, you know, to you. And at the end of the day, if you're not educated enough, you'll end up losing everything, and you'll keep wanting more and more and more until you end up, you know, finding yourself in a wrong place. So, and it's exactly what is happening with us. It just took me back as well to a time when I started working. I was earning very little, and I acquired a lot of things. But today, I look back and then say, in the last 10 years, what is it that I've acquired except a car and another car and a house? Those are the things that I've acquired. I can't acquire anything more because I'm not saving. I'm not investing because he mentioned about investing. And then obviously, you know, people need to be patient as well. He spoke about that because we want to get things quicker. And I think that's one area where I think our youth today are finding myself in the wrong place because of you know, wanting things, you know, quicker. So I do apologize that I'm you know, I'm talking, you know, a lot of things while I'm driving. I do apologize for that because I'm not sitting down. I had my nose down, Doc, so I do apologize. But yeah, that's my contribution so far.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mfuneni. I mean, we are recording this, so maybe we'll also look at this time permitting later. Maybe you can watch the clip. I'm going to upload it on YouTube tomorrow. I'll share the link with you. But quite interesting. When will Motsepe stop? Yeah, that's a very good question. Maybe in your response you can answer that.
I think, I mean, I don't know if he has a private jet now, but there was a time he used to travel public transport, as his friends will tease him. And you know, everybody knew about him, but his quite friends will always say he travels public transport. So you obviously want to get a jet, and once you get a jet, then somebody else. It's that thing of it. When is it ever enough? And I think, I mean, you look at Warren Buffett. He makes two examples of two wealthy, super wealthy people who had a long-term, who had duration, and that's Warren Buffett and Bill Gates. And I actually thought it's quite amazing that nobody spoke about that divorce when it happened earlier this year, that Warren Buffett quietly distanced himself from Bill Gates. And I think it was, I don't know if it was greed. I mean, when you look at what's going on with on Bill Gates about his insatiable need for more power and more power and more power and more control. And you've got Warren Buffett, who is still working at 80 something because he enjoys the art of investing. And I was actually quite sad when this guy said, actually, his return on investment is not that great. He's not a greatest investor. It's just, he's been doing it much longer, since he was 10, which for a minute, I'm like, oh my God, I'm too old. I mean, if you're over 40 and you can't catch up with Warren Buffett, unless you're like an exceptional trader. So, and I think rich people and wealthy people, they still have this insatiable need to make, it becomes a numbers game. It's not just about wealth. It's just the ability to create, the ability to do the next thing that, you crave it. So their way of satiating the life experience is business. But you get a guy like the janitor who had the psychological comfort of having money, and he just enjoyed a simple life, and that's all he wanted. So the most important thing, I think, is that chapter of freedom, that, controlling your time and owning your time. That for me was like very key, that it doesn't matter if you live in a shack or you live in a big house. It matters how much control you have of your time. And that should be a priority. And that should be our own test to say, can you wake up tomorrow and just say, I'm just going to take a week off and things won't fall apart and I'll be okay. And I've got nobody to answer to. I won't be in trouble. And I would like to have that as my litmus test. Then another thing, when I was reading this, I actually thought it reminded me of traders when you're trading stocks or Forex or whatever. And one of the coaches that I love, he always says, plan your trade and trade your plan. And what happens with most traders, like when you're doing really well or you're projecting that, the stock, or let's say even people that are doing Bitcoin, you go in and it goes up, but then it's going to retrace at some point and go up. So you've got people that when it goes up and they've got a point where they're supposed to exit, and they think, oh my God, but I could make more. But then the thing retraces and they don't get out and they lose value out of it. And there's some people that are so good. I mean, my coach is a good example of, he plans his trade. He sets his trade for a week and he doesn't go back and look at the market. He sets his stop. He basically will say, I'll go in. If I make 60 points, that's great. If I lose 40 points, that's fine. But he doesn't look at his trade again after he sets it, because he trades his plan. And I thought that's probably what we need to also apply in life, is that if you say, look, I want to build wealth. And it was nice to be reminded that there's a difference between wealth and being rich. And if you say, I want to be wealthy, at some point, honestly, to die with so much money that you've never used, I think it's a little bit not a great idea. At some point, you got to consolidate your portfolio and say, look, I've made enough. I mean, it sounds like that guy was also a little bit extreme. He didn't know when enough was enough saving. And at some point, you have to say, this is, in the next 20 years, I'm going to save this much. And after that, I'm just going to have this type of life. I'm not going to reach out for more. So it's that the enough, that for me was a big challenge that I think I'd like to take up. And I think it also came down to being frugal, and Warren Buffett is extremely frugal. And he's made it clear that his kids are not inheriting any of his money. He still lives in the same house that he's lived in forever. His kids are school teachers. They're not wealthy. They don't aspire to have wealth. But also all the examples that he gave of success, these are people that have psychological comfort that wealth gives. So I think there's a point when you see an amount in your bank that you've got no need to spend it. It just sits there and you're comfortable just sitting and watching it. So I kind of thought the examples that he gave are not really realistic, because they came from wealth. They built wealth, like Warren Buffett and Bill Gates, a bad example of how to get rich or how to not get rich, typically. But the janitor was a good idea because it sort of, as you say, it was more of an indication that you don't have to be an overly sophisticated with a fancy job to live well. But something that I think Thulani mentioned, and it also was mentioned in the previous book, I think it's like Atomic Habits, or one of the 3 groups, it's that positive paranoia that you always have to plan for the worst case scenario. And it seems like that's something that it's a theme that keeps recurring when it comes to building wealth or running a business, because we might say we didn't anticipate COVID, but a lot of people did not plan to pivot their businesses, and it took them longer to pivot because they didn't prepare for worst case scenario. They didn't prepare for the next technology disruption or advances and whatever. So I don't know how to sort of sit and say I'm going to be paranoid and how to plan for paranoia. But I mean, the other book actually mentioned how obsessive Bill Gates is about planning for the worst case scenario, and he does it on a daily basis of what could go wrong with any of his plan. Like, it's almost I forgot the phrase, but it was like obsessive paranoia or something like that, but constructive paranoia or something like that. And I think because it's recurring, that's something that I would like to start. 2 things that I'd like to probably start doing, I don't know if I'm too late or not, is that those little savings, and also that paranoia of planning for what if, because somebody said, you'll think rock bottom is the end, but it has a basement. So we might think COVID is rock bottom, but you might find out there's a basement, as I think Omicron has also showed that. So it's probably something that we all need to learn, that we're not coming out, the new normal is not coming. There could be a basement to the situation. And what do you do going forward? How do you adapt? How do you plan? Where do you save your money that you're not going to lose it? And also, what I didn't like about the book, just in case I get frozen, he focuses too much on portfolio investment and cash, but not on assets, because sometimes you spend. I mean, if you buy a car, there's a sports car that depreciates and there's a sports car that keeps value. So him saying people will admire the car, but you could be buying an asset that actually retains your value and your market value of your or you could be buying property or anything, or an asset or something that, if you look at the Birkin bag, it looks like a bragging bag, but it appreciates. You actually keep it, and next year it sells for more money. So you might show up and say, I've got this nice bag, but it's actually an investment. So I thought that's what was missing in building wealth, and focusing only on cash or portfolio assets rather than illiquid assets. And I think a lot of people, when they think of saving, they have that narrow scope, and they don't think outside. I mean, if you look at Gary Vee, his investments are the worst thing, like baseball cards. It's like, who would think of that? Yeah, and he's making money off that. So I think it sort of creates that narrow view of wealth can only be built on portfolio. It's almost like he's a promoter for the stock market, or he's been sponsored by the stock market to write this book. So yeah, that's my take on the book in general.
Awesome. Thank you. Quite an interesting take. I don't know. I think Mali has vanished. Okay, Mali Salah has vanished. Okay, that's fine. I think he's Angie.
Yes, sir. On my way out, because I'm going to wrap up. But I found it very interesting, the question actually that Mr. Kunene was raising. And I believe, and I agree with you, I mean, I think about enjoying the money while you're still alive, and why amassing. I have met in my life a lot of people that are, super savings, and they don't get to enjoy it because, as they say, you only live once, right? But I think it depends a lot on the set of values that you live your life on, depending, because perhaps if I was Mr. Rich, I would have loved to see the product of my savings or my work, in that library or in that hospital, perhaps while I'm alive, because he didn't even get to enjoy that, the blessing to be a blessing, right? Like to be of service or helping. So but it depends on the set of values of the person, of the whoever, because the book also talks about experiences. The way you perceive the world is depending on how you have been treated, and so it depends a lot on the set of values. But I think the point that he was trying to make here in the comparison is about that, you don't need to be, it's not a given, the fact that you have a PhD. No pun, no offense, guys.
No, we are good.
don't have to have a PhD, you don't have to be the most educated, but a lot of discipline, can take you a long way, even if you're not the most educated person. So yeah, I wanted just to wrap on that one, that it just depends on the set of values or what you want in life. So yeah, okay. I might see it differently. Mr. Reed, I would like to see the fruit of my labor, the fruit of my, but I'm different perhaps. So yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm
before you
off.
go, you go, when is your enough, Angie?
Exactly. Oh, the other thing you brought it back. It made me think because yeah, I'm an entrepreneur as you know as well, and yeah, I agree with the Bojo that she was saying. We're always trying to find the new best thing and how to improve and stuff. But then I came to realize that the more because we're talking about Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, they are very busy people. If you compare, it goes back again to the time. What do you want? You want to keep on pursuing. So that means no time and you're gonna be busy. And I believe as much as your richness or wealth, I think increases, you're gonna be the busiest. So yeah, I have had to come, and I think I'm gonna be sitting down before the end of the year finishes to really establish how much is my enough and what else. Yeah, it's a good reflection to end up the year, I think.
Quite interesting. Before you go, quite interesting that all these guys, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, they actually don't have a very successful family life.
Exactly.
I mean, Warren Buffett, Susan Buffett died when she passed on due to cancer. They had separated. They were staying in separate houses. Jeff Bezos just got divorced recently. Bill Gates just got divorced recently. Elon Musk can't keep a relationship or a marriage going. It's quite interesting. I'm just sort of like looking at that to say all these people that are out there and they are a public success, but a private failure. So it's just something that I just actually thought about it. Before you go, Angie, I have 3 minutes to abuse you. What is your rating of the book? Out of 10.
Out of 10, perhaps 8 or 9, actually, because it's quite straightforward. The principles, I actually divided the principles in 4 areas. That is about your behavior, how not to screw up money, how to get wealthy and stay healthy, and how to protect your money. So it's very broad, but it's very straightforward as well. So even though it touches a lot of points, it's also very straightforward. So I just love I love that about it.
Yeah. Okay. So what is it finally, 8 or 9?
Let's say 9. Let's do a 9.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much. And have a lovely festive season. Please don't finish the money. There's still January to come. Psychology of money. I was deliberate that we do this book now because I know you're gonna get carried away with your finances, you guys.
Perfect timing. No more shoes, the Bojo. Okay.
No December shopping.
Okay, no December shopping. Bye, guys.
Cheers. Mr. Gunene,
bye.
When is your enough?
I suppose I've never asked myself that question, but over the last few years, I've tended to look at things differently. It's no longer about what you can show, but and over the last few months, what I went through, you change how you look at life. You tend to appreciate things that you took for granted in the past. Being able to walk, to breathe, to do what you want to do, compared to a case where you were lying down, unable to do anything. So looking at that, now when it comes to monetary, I haven't looked at it in that way, but having enough to live and to take care of the necessary things, but not the flashy things where you want a Ferrari, where you're going to race with that car. As long as you have a good quality car to take you from point A to B in a comfortable way, I'm okay with that. Comfortable housing, but it shouldn't be a big house where the one room you only see after 6 months, or it just collects dust. It's just extra space that is not being used. You know, I don't think that's worth, you know, but I can't put value to it when is enough. Also, being able to help others. I'm thinking about the janitor. Probably he was not aware that he was this rich. He only realized at a later stage where he had to give the money.
Yes.
If he knew, he wouldn't have worked so much. That's what I'm thinking. He didn't know. Probably because he was not educated.
I agree with you.
That's all that came to my mind. He was not aware, because how he got to those, got that rich, he invested and he left that investment. It just compounded over the years. He never checked it. So probably someone told him about that investment. He invested there and he forgot about it. Only later in life, that's when he realized, and it was too late for him to spend that money. That's what I'm thinking. A scale from 8 to 10, I'll give it a 7, because the cover made me thought that there's a psychology of how money works. But when you start reading, he talks about how people spend money. But not how the way psychology, to me, it was a bit of a different from what I read. So that's why I would say I'll give it a 7. It is a good 7. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Thanks. So you don't want to be like Motsepe, Mr. Gunen?
Motsepe.
You don't want to
I don't know. I was listening to another clip yesterday. They were talking about the richest people in South Africa. All the billionaire, US billionaire have left South Africa. Motsepe is the only one who's left. They're wondering why he hasn't left. I'm thinking that he probably wants to give back to his community. The fact that he doesn't want to buy a jet, or he's not interested in buying a jet, probably he knows that this is enough. He's enough with what he has. And probably he's thinking that if he has a jet, then he can be targeted easy. Or maybe he just feels that he needs to spend time with people, because he's lonely up there as well. I think.
No, it's not. Trust me, it's not lonely up there.
Have you been there?
There's a whole, I'm not going to say anything on Facebook. But I mean, the whole private clubs that exist, there's a whole lifestyle that exists when you're wealthy. It just, people are different. It's like, you know, you might find.
Okay, we are getting, I think the network.
Why only when she talks?
I wonder, maybe she needs to switch off the video, maybe. But we'll ask her when she comes back. So I think for me, one is enough. I know for a fact I don't want to be a multi-millionaire. I think this whole obsession about, you know, being this billionaire, gazillionaire, whatever, I think it's just crazy. I don't think that's the essence of what life is about. I think it's just a crazy game that people are playing, and, you know, just being competitive. So I think for me, and to your point, Mr. Kunene, as long as my basic needs are taken care of, I have a comfortable life, my kids are taken care of. For me, it's about impact, really. It's about going out there and leaving people far much better than I found them. For me, you know, that's the criteria that I want to measure myself. When I get to heaven, this is what I want to say. I've managed to impact people, not the bank account. You know, quite frankly, I wouldn't be bothered by that. Obviously, we are bothered by it because we want to be, we want to live a good life. For me, it's not about, I want to be seen, I want to be known, I want to be famous, red carpet. I don't care about those things, quite frankly. So yeah, as long as those basic necessities are taken care of, I'm good. I'm very good. I would give it an 8. I'd give the book an 8. I think there's some, you know, I mean, the investment portfolios and all those things, not really my thing, because not necessarily not my thing, but I mean, I've studied those as part of, management accounting at school, financial management. So for me, those were not that key. I think for me, what was key is to your point, the psychology, the emotional part around money. And I think for me that it came out, but it didn't come out as I've expected. But I think it's something that he has tried. I think I've read quite a number of finance books, but I think this has actually tried to get to the emotions of money far more than other books that have done that. So yeah, I don't think Duckworth will manage to come back. But yeah, I think it's only us, Mr. Kunene. I don't know if you have any other last thought. Oh yeah, and the other thing that I found quite interesting, and in the book, there's a mention of a party. These guys went to a party, and this other one was saying, there's this guy, he made so much money, far more than what you make. I don't know if you remember that story. He makes so much money, much more than you make. I think he makes your money within a week or something ridiculous like that. And then the other guy responded to say, "Oh, that's great, but I know I have something that you'll never have, and that's enough, And I think for me that was like, quite an amazing, thought-provoking a response to say, he knows what his enough is. He knows this is enough, and I'm fine. I think Bill Gates has got far more than enough to stay at home for the rest of his life and still be okay. Warren Buffett the same. Are they still doing what they're doing because of money? I don't know.
No,
are they?
It's not about money.
Yeah, So I don't know if they're still doing it for money or are they still doing it for other intentions. But yeah,
when you talk about being content,
yes.
I heard the story of who's this guy of Gift of the Givers, Imran Suleiman.
Yes, Suleiman, yes.
He had riches. He's done everything that he wanted to do, but money was still there. And then something clicked in his mind that this money can't be just for me. And then he started the Gift of the Givers. He's using all of that, and some people saw his vision and then also clapped in to help him. So that's what he does. He doesn't, he apparently sold all his big houses and big cars, and just concentrate on wherever there's a need, he will go there and help, of which I think it's a good thing.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I think let's close it there. I mean, we're supposed to finish at 8. It's almost 10.
8 minutes past, yeah.
Yeah, but I think Duckworth is coming back. I don't know if we want to give her maybe a few minutes to wrap up her thoughts as well. I think one last thing, Duckworth, before you wrap up. I sort of had this link between this book and Atomic Habits and Great by Choice. And as I was reading this Psychology of Money, and there's a whole thing about compounding and compound interest and things like that. And then I remembered in Atomic Habits, he talks about habits, the compound effect of habits, that in the first week or the first month you won't see the benefits, but after that then you start seeing the benefits, and that's the compounding. And I found that to be quite interesting. And also when it comes to when is enough, and shifting the goalposts and things like that, I also thought about Great by Choice, and in Great by Choice, that 20-mile march, to say, I'm only going to go this far and that's it. I'm not going to go, even if the weather conditions is good, I'm not going to push beyond that. I'm going to have the discipline to stay within that. And I think also it came out through also in Atomic Habits as well, somewhere in our Atomic Habits, it also came out that as you're developing a habit, don't, if you set yourself a target for this much, do that much every day. And then, you'll be able to build the habit, that endurance, that you'll be able to build the endurance. So I found that to be quite interesting as I was linking up the books. So yes, let's leave the best for last. Tebogo?
I'm sorry, not feel intimidated and under pressure if I'm
No.
best for last. I think I'll give it an 8 because out of the other 3 books, it had a lot of pragmatic advice, and it reminded me of a lot of things. And as I say, I'm going to recommend it to all the traders because it actually would work for them. And the 2 is, I think somebody said earlier that I expected to have like a lot of psychology stuff of how your brain wires things, like the understanding of why would somebody be comfortable with living poor when they have money. So it still leaves me on, is it a personality thing or is it a trained personality? I mean, I hope my mother doesn't hear me. I was raised by parents who are polar opposite. My mom is an entrepreneur. They take risk. You work with entrepreneurs. We thrive on risk. My dad was a librarian. If he said something happens at 8 o'clock, it happens at 8 o'clock. If he saves 50 rands a month, that's what he will save. And then after he saved a lot of 50 rands, my mom comes and has a business venture, and it's like we wiped it all out, and the returns are great. And now I'm stuck with, I find my mom's ways sexier, but some days I'm like, my dad's ways worked, but it goes against the essence of who I am. So it doesn't teach you that. And I think, I don't know if it's innate, it's an innate thing, or if it's something that you need to train yourself to be able to do. As you say, if that guy found out that he had millions before he died, would he have spent it, or it was his character to just sort of say, I'm okay. So I think that 2% of that psychology is not really well explained. He doesn't dig into it enough. But I liked it, and I liked some of the lessons, and I like that it also links with the other books that we discussed. So I'll give it a strong 8.
Yeah, but isn't that then the atomic habits comes in, that you are now used to living this type of a life, you've developed habits of this type of a life, that it becomes habitual to you to live a very frugal life, even though you have so much millions in your bank, or even if you're on the extreme side where you're the Gupta, where your level of hunger does not get satisfied, and you develop this habit of always wanting more and more and more, to an extent that it even lands you in trouble. I just found the connections between this book and Atomic Habits also coming through.
Yeah, I mean, what was interesting about Atomic Habits and even Grit is, and I think we all don't do that, is measuring yourself, measuring your success. And sorry, to also even beyond the book club, what we discussed at Mastermind that we asked you about is, how do you keep a daily budget as an entrepreneur? You don't even know how to track your own budget. And it goes back to those kind of things, like, how do I on a daily basis, when I get back home, measure how much I spend, and if I'm improving by 1% every day? Because that's like a daily, to build that as a habit, it's a daily thing. And that's why I said this book does not have that. It's missing that, which is what Atomic Habits teach you, that how do you slowly then change, not just, be frugal tomorrow, or have enough. If it was that easy, then I think we would all be doing it. So I think when you pair it with Atomic Habits, then it works well. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I also gave it an 8. I felt the psychology part, I give it an 8 because I think I've read quite a lot of, as an accountant, I've read quite a lot of finance books, and nothing comes close to this one when it comes to mixing psychology and money. When you read up on self-help books on finances, it's all draft a budget, this, it's very mechanical. And I think he tried to bring the psychology, but obviously I didn't give it a 10. The 2 is precisely to your point. He didn't go deep enough when it comes to the psychology, but yeah, I gave it an 8 as well. So I think I'm going to recommend it to, those recent graduates who are starting to work, those doctors who you just graduate, even before you graduate, the bank is already throwing all this cards and this card and this debt, and you think you are actually rich, and actually you think you are wealthy, and actually you are rich. But yeah, I think it's a good book to actually recommend, or even give as a gift to a graduate when you are invited to a graduation party. I'll definitely bring this book. But yeah, Mr. Kunene, last thoughts?
It's a good book. It helps people look at things in a different way. It has helped me learn a few things, especially the part where he was talking about his daughter who don't understand why he goes to work, but there's a reason why he goes to work. That was also a good, and that you can also use for probably your spouse or your employees, that they don't know why you do certain things. Yeah. But it's for their own good. So awesome. That was another lesson, but it was a good book.
Awesome. Thank you. Deborah, last words.
No, I think that's I've said all that that needs to be said. Awesome. But I'm glad it's a good book, and I don't know if you consciously curated all these books together. That there's a I mean it's genius how they all now tying together. So no, quite impressive.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot. So next year, January, these two guys, Seth, they're not related, slightly different, but I know the tribes thing. So we are doing tribes, and then of course we are going to have a Jabu Stone as our guest. So we'll start maybe slightly early. We'll do this one for maybe 30 minutes or so, and then when Jabu comes, we'll do his book. Thank you so much, guys, and thank you for being part of the journey. It's quite interesting. The year flies when we do these things, and the next thing the year is over, and we have done 12 books, but you don't see it as you do it every month. But yeah, it's quite interesting. But I've read more books this year, but not as I would have wanted to. But yeah, it's quite interesting to hear your views. Thank you so much, and
thank you, Doc.
See you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.